As I learned, we all learn podcast coming 2022. So stay tuned, family.
Man, good evening, everybody, man. I hope all y'all is doing okay this evening. ETM Hotel, Rennie Sean. Welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to Science with Sean. I did see a couple of people in the chat. A few people jumped in a little bit early. You know, like the show, share the show, tell a friend, tell a friend. I believe Ankh in the building. He probably left to probably be right back. He said science is undefeated. That would be inaccurate, you know. So let me just go ahead and say this like this. The only way that you defeat science is with better science. I'm going to say that one more time for everybody out there that's not paying attention and missed it the first time. The only time that you defeat science is with better science. You underdig? And that's how it's going down. So what we're going to do today is we're going to get into, you know what I mean, pretty much my last little hurrah with this whole conversation. I was going to do it elsewhere, but I didn't want to do it elsewhere. I want the attention. If there's any attention or any negativity that comes of it, or if people get in their feelings or emotionally attached to something that I say in this particular presentation or throughout this conversation, that they direct it to me directly. Me, no one else, not the Masi, not Kofi Pi research team, not the Seshu, that they directed to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm standing on my own. And I ain't got 6 people on the panel with me. I'm by myself. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no nobody else. This is how I do it. You know what I mean? In real life, on the internet, it's the same way. I'm by myself. So if you coming, you know what I mean? All of y'all can come. And this ain't no shot, no sneak this and none of that. It's just a fact. So I stand on my own. I don't need nobody help. You know, I do my own research. I'm part of research teams, but I do my own. I already did that, man. You need to go out the video and go back in, bro. Go out the video and go back in. You're a little late on what you're trying to say. All right, so again, like the show, share the show. I'm pretty sure a couple of people might straggle in here a little bit late, and that's absolutely fine. I'm actually trying to take a little bit of time to let people get in the building because it is going down. So I listen, right? I pay attention to certain details, right? I just don't say something and then just let it go. I stand on what I stand on. Now, I'm not forcing, no way, no way, no way, no way. No way will I ever. Nah, no way will I ever. But I'm just taking the advice. You know what I'm saying? When you become the smartest person in the room, you got to get out of the room. Or he told us that when he starts saying dumb stuff, right? When he get to a point to where he's saying some crazy stuff or some stuff that ain't, you know what I mean, up to par, that we need to sit him down and tell him he need to pass the baton. You know what I mean? So he just need to sit back and let everybody else handle business, and then he do his little once in a blue moon lectures. You know, he get on that type of grind. You know what I'm saying? Nah, man, but like the show, share the show. It's not really a lot of people in here, and I don't expect it to be that. You know, Sean, he ain't gonna get nothing like that. They gonna say something, but it is what it is. So I'm on the screen right now. I want to make sure that everybody can see this. I want to make sure that I got everybody's attention. If you can't see my screen, I need you to adjust your quality on your cell phone by clicking the three dots on your little setting wheel or whatever. Go to the little screw that says quality, go to advanced, and then move your advanced settings quality to 720. That should clear up your cell phone clarity, and you should be able to see my screen very clearly. All right. Now, I do see that everybody can see my screen, and let's go ahead and cook. And for those of you who just joining us, please like the stream, share the stream. I know most people probably not going to watch it this time around. I might dip out, and that's fine. But this is the passing of the baton, a scientific response to Brother Ankh by Sean P. Now, no cap, none of that. All right. I already talked to Ankh earlier today. Okay. He knew it was coming. He ain't surprised. He knew it was coming. He ain't surprised. And it ain't personal and it ain't serious. We having fun with scholarship. So I don't want nobody to think that it's like some type of something brewing. It ain't. It ain't that. We just gonna argue over the information. It's not personal. All right. So here's my outline. I have my introduction, my hypothesis. We're gonna hear Ankh's argument, and then you'll hear my response. And then we'll have the conclusion. And as you can see below, I have a parody, not to be taken seriously. All right. But I did put a little parody in here because I want people to laugh, but at the same time, I want you to learn, I want you to laugh, and I want you to be able to have some fun in the meantime. You know what I mean? So that's where we are with this. I don't know anything about I didn't even know that Alan had a response. A response to what? Charles, what did Alan respond to? Did he respond to the pseudo killers? Did he respond to me? I don't know. What was the response? Before we get going, if you don't mind answering that for me, and then we'll get into the bill. So I know there's a little slight delay, and I know you got to type, but if anyone knows what our brother Charles is referring to, he got in the conversation, responded to the. Oh, okay. Nah, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I didn't see that. I didn't see that. All right, so let's move on. Now, it all started from the first fire. If y'all recall, on the Masi Warrior Clan, I did a video on the Congo teachings and how they map the universe. This is where it all started. All right, after reading from Fukiao's work expressing their teachings, a storm began to brew. All right, it led to me doing 2 other shows only to repeat myself over and over in some 6 to 8 hour shows involving Brother Ankh and his attempt to control the narrative. After Ankh and Asar conversed or presented arguments about what our ancestors did or did not know, many people have more questions. Rightfully so. In this lecture, I set out to respond to Ankh and his science and census argument to advance scholarship. So here's my hypothesis. I am of the belief that Brother Ankh has lost his way when it comes to science. He claims to be an enthusiast and he is a big proponent of science, but for some reason, he is not adhering to the scientific standard that helps us answer questions about our natural world. I could be wrong, but I believe he has lost touch with a teaching tool he has used for years to challenge the social community we call a conscious community. I have yet to see him demonstrate his arguments based on proper research methodology. He is shot from the hip a little too much, and as of late, and seems to have forgotten a key element in the scientific method. Science is a process we use to gain new knowledge about the world around us. In the next 2 slides, we will review Ankh's argument regarding science and census. It's 2 slides because Ankh has some malfunction issues and pauses while he presents. Here's slide number 1.
Just don't slow it up.
See, science is undefeated.
Yeah, science is undefeated, man. Hope this don't slow it up. All right, let's go to the next one. So what we're talking about is our senses. What people try to do is they try to give a point that would make you say, I can see they know that. I can see how they did that. But what we want to know is we want to ask the question, how did they know that? Because asking the question of how did they know that will confirm whether they understood something or not. We talk about science. We're not talking about the basic rudimentary science, right? That started out, that built the foundation for everywhere. We talk about astronomy, and we clearly understand where astronomy starts at, right? But what we need to take care of here, I need to make this very simple for y'all. I'm gonna use a little Neil on y'all, Neil deGrasse. We talk about senses versus science, like your 5 senses. It seems pretty simple, doesn't it? Our first and most basic link to the universe is provided by our senses. Seeing something or hearing it, smelling it, feeling it, tasting it, grounds us in reality. So our senses must be an important part of looking at the world from a scientific point of view, right? That certainly sounds right. But Neil has argued repeatedly that our senses are not terribly good indicators when it comes to scientific matters. Now, we know on the green savanna, right, in the Sahara and on the plains, that our ancestors were masters of that using their senses. What Asar is coming to attempt to do is he's trying to usurp the senses. Because we're really talking about what? Let me keep moving. Instrumentation. Watch this. The notion that seeing is believing, he writes in his Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, works well in many endeavors, including mechanical engineering, fishing, and perhaps dating. But it doesn't make for good science. Science is not just about seeing. It's about measuring, preferably with something that's not your own eyes, which are
This is where Brother Ankh has the malfunction. So I'm going to skip to the next slide so we can pick up where Brother Ankh is, because, you know, it's going to take him a while to get through this.
Hold on 1 second. Let me get Corey in. Hold on.
There you go.
With the baggage of your brain. Let me go back here because I want everybody to get this. Why the shit ain't moving, yo? God damn, this bullshit. Let me start right here. The notion that seeing is believing. Y'all can see it, right? He writes in Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. Works well in many endeavors, including mechanical engineering, fishing, and perhaps dating. But it does not make for good science. Science is not just about seeing. It's about measuring, preferably with something that's not your own eyes, which are inexplicably conjured with the baggage of your brain. That baggage is more often than not a satchel of preconceived ideas, post-conceived notions, and outright bias. So what is he saying here? He's saying that just your senses, just by yourself. He talks about how your brain and your eyes can become baggage. We understand this. We can get tricked by a magic trick on the stage all day long. That's your 5 senses failing you all day long. And there are things called biases. Let's read Neil's words. Science did not achieve maturity. He says maturity until we what? Invented machines, mechanisms, devices that either replaced our senses, intended our senses, or extended our senses, or became a whole other sense entirely. There are things going on out there that our five senses know nothing about. Now, some have you thinking they knew it. They knew that. They knew. Well, how? Was it the deity that gave it to them? How did they know? Yeah, I heard your lecture there, son. I liked it. So let's get you.
All right. So we heard a lot of Neil and not enough Ankh West. So we know that he conceded and decided to appeal to authority. So he wants to make Neil deGrasse's argument about senses and so forth, right? We got a lot of that and not a lot of Ankh. See, these are the things that make you go, yeah. So I guess we got to respond to Neil because you're not up to the task. But at the same time, senses versus science. The five senses are useless. You said the brain, well, you quoted him saying that the brain and the eyes are baggage. We could be tricked, right? We can see a magic trick and get tricked, right? Because we can't keep up with the illusion of things or whatnot. All right. As a science enthusiast, we must adhere to proper research methodology and utilize the tools science teaches us to obtain knowledge and demonstrate a command for that which we are arguing in favor for. See, Bro Ankh's argument is a fallacious one, and it is not based in science. To be honest, his argument from the earlier onset of his presentation was senseless. Neil deGrasse Tyson was only explaining how our senses are limited, but tools could have helped us solve some things a lot quicker than our past. Bro Ankh would have you to believe that Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't adhere to observation and that the whole notion of our five senses aren't useful and tools are what is required in order to answer natural world questions. See, Neil argued that tools would have done a much better job, yes, but he did not negate observation as Ankh would have you believe. Neil says we would have come further along. We would have come further along ago if we had the tools of today. Neil also stated that our senses have limitations and our goal is to go beyond those limitations. So to give you the proper context in what he was saying, he's basically arguing that our senses have limitations. He gets rid of taste, smell, right? Because you don't need those for the universe. We can't taste the universe or smell the universe. None of those really matters, right? The key elements in observing the universe would be our eyesight, but our eyesight is limited, so we need something more not even standard, because if you use he said in his lecture, a standard telescope, right, you can only see so much in the universe. But if you had a real nice telescope, you can start seeing dark matter and all these other things that we're missing out because our eyesight and then depending on the telescope is limited.
Each other, he discovers the expanding universe. A few years later, the Big Bang theory of the universe advances, with not much data, but that we're expanding at the time. You turn the clock back, you find that the whole universe, sometime in the past, all occupied the same volume at the same time. You say, that doesn't make sense. How can the whole universe fit on the head of a pin? That doesn't make sense. And then you realize the universe doesn't care about your senses because we're probing it beyond the range that your senses were formulated. Our senses emerge from being born an ordinary human being in this world, breathing air, walking in 1 G's worth of gravity. That is our life. And so in modern science, we no longer require that a successful idea makes sense. And I think that's created quite a bit of confusion when a scientist says, oh, well, the whole universe was this, and a particle pops out of existence here and shows up there, and there's 11 dimensions, and this, and you hear to say, what's he smoking? You know, you wonder what's going on with the scientists today. And the fact is, our regime is no longer grounded in the limitations of the 5 senses we carry with us. And so the lesson there, and what comes across in that chapter is my goal, is that before you celebrate the brilliance of our 5 senses, think about what it is you're not seeing about the universe. And then ask yourself, what do you need to know about that in order to claim that you know the universe to begin with? That's coming to your sense.
Just a little snippet from Neil. Now, days ago, I asked Brother Ankh this question, and to no avail, he refused to answer. However, this question is the key component in proper scientific research methodology. Does anyone in the chat actually know what the key component in scientific research methodology is? Do you know? If you know, go ahead and answer. If you don't know, just say you don't know. Don't try to guess it. It's okay. I know there's a delay. I'm going to wait a little bit, but I want to see if you're still rocking with me in the chat. So, what is the key component in proper research methodology? Does anyone know? If you know, answer. If you don't know, it's cool. You ain't got to answer. We're going to get to it all. Because I don't want anyone to think that what Ankh did the other day when he was having a conversation with Asar was actually scientific. He had some good stuff in there. Everything is everything says observation. Sutek says testing or observation. Is there anyone else that might have an actual clue what is the key component in proper research, scientific research methodology? Anyone else? I'll wait like another 20 seconds. And then we'll see. He said not being pseudo. He said not being pseudo. All right, so let's get to it. That's fine. If you don't know, you don't know. Experimentation, ATL says. Here you go. So again, I ask y'all, what is the first step in the scientific method? Charles says observation. We got 3 observations and 1 experimentation. Credible sources, someone says. Man said actual clue. Tough crowd. All right, let's go. Scientific observation is the central element of scientific method or process. The core skill of scientists is to make observations. Observation consists of receiving knowledge of the outside world through our senses or recording information using scientific tools and instruments. Any data recorded during an experiment can be called an observation. I'm going to say the last part of that again. So the core skill of scientists is to make an observation. Observations consist of receiving knowledge of the outside world through our senses. Our recording information uses scientific tools and instruments. So I want everyone to understand clearly that observation consists of receiving knowledge of the outside world through our senses. You know, the senses that Ankh tried to downplay and then put Neil on the screen as if to say, well, he's the smartest person in the room, so we gotta make the whole fallacy of appealing to authority or credentials, and so we got to yield with that because Neil says it, right? See, a scientific process or scientific method requires observation of nature and formulating and testing the hypothesis. It consists of the following 4 steps. Observe something and ask questions about a natural phenomenon. That's a scientific observation. Make your hypothesis. Make the predictions about your local consequences of the hypothesis. Test your predictions by controlled experiment and natural experiment and observational study or field experiment. Create your conclusion on the basis of data or information gathered in your experiment. Scientific observation. In science, theories are important, but theories alone may not be enough to prove or disprove a hypothesis. Using the scientific method allows one to take a systemic approach to formulating a hypothesis and arriving at a conclusion that advances knowledge about a subject. In the scientific method, it's 2 types of observations exist. You have quantitative and qualitative observation. Let's take a look at those and see what they are so we can make a clear distinction and we can let the beat build. The scientific method is not an instantaneous process because at the high level, it involves observing the world and asking questions about a process of interest. It is then possible to formulate a hypothesis about why that process occurs and test that hypothesis. As observations are made during tests, one may discover new facts that the original hypothesis doesn't explain. If that happens, it is necessary to discard or update the hypothesis and continue testing based on new hypotheses. So here's the power of inquiry. A simple example of an analysis using the scientific method might involve asking why a house plant's leaves droop. From the question, one could formulate the following hypothesis. The plant droops because it does not receive enough sunlight. This hypothesis could be tested by placing the plant in stronger sunlight and observing what happens. If the plant leaves still droop, it can be concluded that the hypothesis is wrong. Using this new knowledge, the hypothesis can be modified so that it becomes the plant droops because it does not get enough food. By continuing to ask questions, you modify the hypothesis and make new observations. The researchers may eventually arrive at a conclusion that explains why the plant leaves droop. If I need to slow it down, I will again. But in short, all I am saying is if the plant leaves are drooping and you sit it in the sunlight and they still continue to droop, then you feed the plant. And if the plant leaves continue to droop, then you be like, all right, so we put it in the sun, that didn't work. We put some plant food in there, that didn't work. We gave it some water and set it in the sun. Let's see if it still droops. You're going through your observational phase and formulating your hypothesis so that you can test it. And if the test results yield differences and you find out some things are needed to be upgraded, then that's the thing that you do. So what am I saying? Quantitative observation observations made while using the scientific method can be quantitative or qualitative. Observations are quantitative if they return numerical data. So when we're talking about measuring, right, like the Ashango bone, right, that's counting days or math or coming up with some numerical data, right, that would be pretty much quantitative as an example. Okay, now there's better examples out there. I'm just trying to use something that can record numerically, and the Ashango bone popped up in my head first. All right. Now, when numeric values are recorded, the observations are more objective and qualified. So now we remove the Ashango bone and we go and we look at counting days. Well, we can still use it because it was used to count days. But let's say we're observing the natural world as it is right now. We're going outside and we're counting how many times that we see the sun appear and the moon appear. That would complete a day for us. Right? So we would make a mark into something that would calculate this These same two occurrences happen once, and then it happened again the next day, and we go on down. Other people performing the same analysis can make observations using the same quantitative method as was originally used. If any type of statistical analysis is done, it is important to make quantitative observations while using scientific method. In the drooping plant example, quantitative measurements could include the number of days the plant spent in the sun. See where we come back to? We come back to the plant in the sun after it was moved there. Now, because the number of days would be a concrete value, it would be possible to record the value as a tangible, objective number. Qualitative observation. It is very important that you understand what I'm about to say here. Qualitative research is when observations are recorded without capturing numeric data values. This type of observation is more subjective and relies on the researcher's interpretations of why a particular event or behavior happens. So put yourself in the mind frame of a hunter-gatherer thousands of years ago, and you're trying to harvest your food for the coming winter months, which you don't know nothing about winter, you don't know nothing about spring, you don't know nothing about fall, you don't know nothing about summer, because you're just a hunter-gatherer going through the cycles of the sun, and you're trying to understand your natural world. But certain things occur, right? These certain things occur during these time periods, depending on how you calculated that value, which would take you back to quantitative. But in this instance, your research, qualitative, is about observations recorded without capturing any numerical data. So when we observe a more subjective, our observations are more subjective under qualitative. You can see this all over the world. There's a lot of, in ancient times or in hunter-gathering times, the observations were more qualitative than quantitative. And when they began to use certain tooling that would help them, right? Like the map, the Ishango bone goes back to that. That's 25,000, 30,000 years old, right? You go all the way back to that. Or you find rocks where they scraping, doing this markings on certain type of rocks and stones and things like that. Like, that's quantitative. But do you think a hunter-gatherer 30,000 years ago knew what quantitative observation was? I think not. But today, the tools that we have today allow us to name things and put them into context for us to further understand the hunter-gatherer and where they were in that time and space and how they brought forth so much to the world. We discard what we don't need no more, and we keep what we find useful. So let's recap. When a scientist sets out to prove something using the scientific method, he must first observe something in the natural world. For instance, Sir Isaac Newton theorized that there was a force called gravity after he watched an apple fall from a tree. This would be a natural observation. Newton saw something happen in nature without any intervention on his part or the part of anyone else. This type of observation means the scientist will watch and wait for the event to happen during an experiment. So when you're stargazing and you're looking out at the universe, and it's certain times or parts of the year, and you're just staring, you ain't got nothing else to do. For those who smoke, you might be sitting on your patio, rolling you up a big fat one, letting that thing cheech and chong, and you just watching the stars. Well, you might have a telescope, and you might just be just looking and looking and looking, and then something shoots across while you're observing this, observing that phenomenon that just transpired. It could have been a shooting star, it could have been a plane, but you narrowed it down because you just actually did really see a shooting star. You don't know where it's headed, but you saw it in your observation, right? You didn't record nothing, you just saw it. You bear witness to some event. Or it's just like the eclipse. right? People can see those things. They're big enough for us to actually see. However, something our naked eye can only see so far. So we can observe some things, but we're not going to be able to see the things that everybody think that we should see now. But anywho, that observation means everything in the scientific method. That sense of eyesight is very important. To discard that or minimize that is shameful. So again, we observe naturally, we stage observations, quantitative observations exist, qualitative observations exist. The difference between quantitative is one is recorded, qualitative is not. But observations occur, and they have been occurring since man has began to walk upright and wonder how to protect themselves in their environments and look for ways to do a better job at creating some of those things that Ankh mentioned in his presentation. As for Ankh's argument, as I stated earlier, is fallacious. And until he removes his biases and look at information the correct way, he will succumb to being a proponent of scientism.
Yo.
Some questions about the presentation?
Okay, so Asar, are you saying that the Bantu people were aware or coming upon the knowledge of or the discovery of the Big Bang, or that's where the universe was created from?
Well, the first thing we have to do is correct the conversation. And this is something that Brother Sean and Brother Ben, and which I just witnessed right now, reiterated. Because you have to go back to how Ankh is wording the question. Did the Africans understand the Big Bang? And that's not what we're arguing. We're arguing simply that when you compare the African cosmologies and sit it side by side with certain modern cosmologies, they mirror in very fundamental ways. So to sit here and try to make it seem like we're even arguing that the ancients understood the Big Bang is a straw man argument that no one is even making. And so while it's some useful information that he's teaching, is ultimately irrelevant. For example, the Greeks at around the 5th century BCE comes up with this concept. Africans already had it, but for European folks, comes up with this concept called the atom. They don't have Schrodinger's equations. They don't have Einstein's relativity, which in his arguments gives birth to modern quantum mechanics. They have none of this. There's no hadron collider, but they come up with this concept that the universe is built from these atoms that come together and form the matter that we see. Europeans were not able to prove that until 2,000 years later. They were able to build off of the concept and to later prove the concept of the existence of atoms, and then now it's further broken down into quarks and up and down quarks, and now the fundamental is fields. And the particles that we see are the agitations of these fields. That's the discussion now. But it started from the atoms of the Greeks.
I do want to say this real quick before. Now, let me get into that, and then Ankh asked for a tool that was used in the Congo among the Bantu, as if the Bantu are subjected to just the Congo. That was another fallacious comment. Although he did a great job of showing African tools and all of that, however, it was irrelevant and had nothing to do with his stance. Stone tools do not progress to the Big Bang Theory. That is another fallacious argument. Ankh never addressed the teachings of the Congo and how they mapped the universe. However, he argued that they got it all wrong. No demonstration related to the initial argument transpired at all, and what he presented was his narrative within his safe zone. Scientific observations is critical, and it deserves a little more respect than what Ankh attempted to give. Rather qualitative, as many cosmologies are, he never dealt with the source outside of his projections. And because of that, he can't conclude or attest that he in any way proved the teachings of the Congo to be wrong. Simply implying that they are and not demonstrating was clearly subjective and very unscientific. Before we get into the hypocrisy parody, I do need to say this because, I talked to Brother Ankh. He thinks that we changed our position. We stuck to the same thing. I never changed. I did 3 shows, right? A combined, 7 or 8 hours in those shows. And in those shows, I basically stuck to the teachings of the Congo. All I did was give you the teachings of the Congo, and then I gave you what science gives you on how the universe came to be known and how the earth formed and all of those things, right? So we can look at the teachings and we can critique the teachings, right? We just can't say they got it all wrong and then we can't demonstrate it. Demonstrate where they got it all wrong. Don't drive this by saying they got it all wrong. No one understood the Big Bang. You can't say that because I think I kind of made some headway with you when I simply said, Ankh, if I speak a language that's called umblumlu, and I'm trying to explain something to you in that language, I have to find a happy medium between my language and the language barrier that we have so that we can meet and you can understand the significance of my teachings. So if my word, in which Fukuyao uses, he uses a word and you didn't read it, but I said it several times. He uses a word that he can try to draw a connection with to have people understand. But then he says, and no one goes back to and understands this. Today, basically, quote unquote, modern science explains these things a little bit better. We have science that actually does a good job. Fukuyama wrote the book in like the 60s. It was upgraded in the 80s. The book is in the era of when the Big Bang existed. Big Bang is, and as T'Challa has stated, not in Old English. This is a new English term. This is a 20th century word. So no person beyond that is going to know anything about a Big Bang because it's newly introduced and they're still trying to answer questions regarding the Big Bang. But what begs to differ is your hypocrisy. Enjoy the show.
saying the same shit.
Are you telling me these people weren't trying to explain the natural effects of the earth?
Nigga, I'm saying that all that Big Bang talk of the affirmation was wrong.
That is not what I asked
I'm saying they got it wrong.
Are you telling me?
I'm saying, yeah, they was, and they got it wrong is what I'm saying.
Hypocrisy typically involves criticizing or condemning the immoral acts of others while engaging in those acts ourselves.
Science, definition of science, the use of evidence to construct testable explanations, right, and predictions of natural phenomena, as well as the knowledge generated through this process. We are natural people, and our problems are natural. So why the hell are you going on the supernatural? You become superstitious. Ooh. Oh, so they gallon out back. Y'all teach that white man science, teach about evolution. I said, but wait a minute. If you want to know about evolution, what do? Right here, it says the book of knowing evolution. There's no Charles Darwin back then. Where's Charles Darwin at? He's not there. But you want to know about evolution, you got to go to the book of knowing evolution, which is kept it up. And everybody know, we always rock that symbol, kept it up. Transformation. We need to start to transform our character. The dung beetle. And for the record, why I'm a real black atheist. Who is capital? The what? Capital is what? So y'all missed when I said I was a real black atheist. That means I don't give 3 flying hoots about Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and I do not walk around in fear. I follow the wisdom of my ancestors. That's why I'm a real black atheist. Atheos, anti-theos. Theos is the Greek word used in the Bible. It's the governing system. So I'm anti the governing system that enslaved my ancestors. We have no moral obligation to those who have enslaved us. Wait a minute. We call this a primary. Just in case y'all ain't know. I can't read that though. What's this? The papyrus, right? Berber, rhyme, play. I can't read it though. But guess what? It's called intelligence. Where you at? Where you at? Ujalu. Ujalu. Yeah. That's how we do that. It's called teamwork. And that's how the African people come in the world.
So how did the Egyptians know about evolution when referring to a dung beetle? Using your logic in regard to Congo teachings about their cosmology, the Egyptians would be wrong as well. So why are you using Africa when it benefits you most, i.e., vaccines, evolution, writing systems, etc.?
Here are the sources from the presentation. Let me go on and get out of this real quick. And for those of you who are lost, totally lost, and have no idea what just happened, some people have already told you in the chat, we used the old Ankh West to defeat the space age Ankh West. If anyone recalls, he went to Africa to explain evolution. And in this particular juncture, he used the Remech. But the Remech has no idea about evolution at this time, or a Charles Darwin at this time. This thousands of years ago. They don't know nothing about the earliest man. They don't know anything about genetics. They don't know anything about sequencing DNA. None of that. So if we use that same logic from space age Ankh, he would be wrong in his teachings on evolution, especially when he refers to Darwin, the Leakeys, and so forth. What saves Ankh is this: South Africa, right? See, in all of the continent of Africa, there's creation stories, how they came to be. Some come out of holes. Some say they descended from some far place. Other people say they migrated into the locations where they're from. All of them have these different stories. Some of them could equate to the things that Ankh likes to talk about. See, in the book of knowing, right, when he refers to Khepera, if you've ever read that story, you are going to sit here and question space age Ankh today. So all you got to do is remember, I have more examples. And that was out of fun. You know what I mean? I had a good laugh putting it together, and I knew no one would know or see it coming. I knew you didn't even know. You couldn't see it coming because it was methodical. I ain't got to argue with Ankh. I'm just going to use Ankh's logic against him. It would negate all the things that he teaches about. It would damn sure shred his book. He has a book, The Chronology of Evolution. It would shred his book to pieces if Ankh, space age Ankh, uses the logic on evolution. So that means you wasted your time writing a book. Yes, Ankh is self-correcting like science. But Ankh's argument in the conversation with Asar wasn't based on the Congo teachings, which started this entire conversation. Ankh's conversation with Asar was about senses versus science. You can't even get the stone tools, Ankh, without using your senses. Man had to use his senses to develop the things that keep him surviving in his natural world. If man didn't use his senses, right, he couldn't do too much. I.e., like early man couldn't create fire. So when it got cold, early man had to make some adjustments. So what would early man do when like nature would create a fire? Early man would flock to the fire. Did y'all know that? They would flock to it. Their natural instinct and senses would lead them to the fire where they would seek comfort and know how to stay warm. When they began to learn how to develop the tools to make or start or create a fire, then you could talk about cooking and all those other things that we see, especially in Bloomberg's cave. We go down there, not Bloomberg, but we go down there in South Africa and we get into those caves where we see the clam shells and we see where they had like, quote unquote, I'm just going to say a kitchen in the caves and all of that, where they cooked, prepared their food. We're not like we do today. It's different. I'm just saying, down there where they were doing all of that, right? The evolution of early man. There was a process. See, you brought up stone tools, then you went to your rocks, you went to your spear tips, then you went to the spears, and you talked about the whole evolution, and then you talked about you can't get from spears and jump to missiles. It's all a process. None of that had anything to do with explaining the universe. That wasn't very scientific. The focus is on the teachings of the of the Congo. That started this whole conversation. Where that gets thrown out is when you change the narrative. It's just as Asar said, just as I stated, and just as Ben stated, you're not listening to us. I don't know if it's old age, your eldership, or you ranking. I don't know. But you're just not listening to us. And you can't put the Congo teachings beside science. Why not? Science is going to correct wherever the errors are in the teachings of the Congo. That's what that is what science's job is to do. It isn't to dismiss everything. It is to correct those things that we can correct. You call yourself a God killer, but you can't kill no God with the wrong tools, my guy. What God are you killing if you ain't prepared to kill them? You ain't got the tools. So if science is the tool, then you have to use the tool, which means you have to adhere to the scientific method. You have to use observation to formulate your hypothesis, scrutinize and observe, put your work through scrutiny, and then come to an honest conclusion. You can't work backwards. We can't do this backwards. We can't say they got it all wrong and then we never do anything. I don't care what you do. You can't work in that order. You immediately disqualify anything you had to say, but you didn't present anything on what originally started this conversation. You made projections and conjecture. And then you consider, like I said, you stayed in your safe zone. I don't need to ice up. You're the only one with bad knees and elbows. Go to sleep. I don't make no mistakes. I did exactly what you didn't do. I scrutinized your presentation. I scrutinized it because you presented something that had nothing to do with what started the conversation. You took the conversation to a whole nother place and confused hundreds of people. When the initial onset was the teachings of the Congo. So how did we arrive at this? We arrived at this with the teachings of the Congos, with their mapping the universe. So shout out to old Ankh for defeating space age Ankh, and science for self-correcting, because one of the key component in science is observation. Remember, science requires us to know and to do. So we have to obtain knowledge and we have to apply the knowledge. You only obtained and applied stone tools and the process and how it all came to be, and you try to put it on that, and then you try to argue senses versus science, which was really not even there. He says, I'm in the tank and he throwing spears. Okay. You ain't too far in no tank. You can't be in the tank. Your number one tool you didn't use. How could you be in the tank? You don't trust the scientific method. I just demonstrated how you didn't trust the scientific method. Your research questions wasn't even embodied in the teachings of the Congo. That's where you were supposed to start. So if you was going to argue with a SAR, your argument should have been, are the teachings of the Congo scientifically accurate? That was your research question. And then you could have tested it and scrutinized it. However, you already created a bias. And you allowed your bias to make you make scientific mistakes. So you can't be in the tank making those kind of mistakes. Remember, I learned from you, so I know your next move. I'm already ahead of you. But I ain't even gonna entertain anything else because this is my last time saying something about it. I can't do 8-hour shows or 6-hour shows. Yeah, I can't do that. All I can do is do what y'all can't do. Get them timestamps, hit them things out, clip them, and deal with what was said in those things. And that's what I did in this presentation. You said census versus science, and then you straggled on to trying to argue about the evolution of stone tools and how you got to use tools to do these things. And no one made those arguments. That would be very fallacious for someone to argue against the advancement of tools. Tools helped us get to where we are. We kept achieving and evolving through our development. As smart as we got, the more advanced we got in crafting certain things that prospered. That's why your hairline wavery pottery is such a big deal when we argue with the Hebrews and all of these other people in history, right? That's why all of those ancient artifacts from not only ancient Kemet, but Benin, Togo, Nigeria, Cameroon, the Congo, South Africa. That's why those things are instrumental. That's why those caves down in South Africa are monumental for our development and our advancement as African people, African centered, our Africanness, our African Americanness. Because this is where things happen. We don't get all these other things. I don't see you talking about hominids in Europe. I don't see you talking about hominids in China, India, South America, or North America, or rather the United States or Canada. I don't see you talking about hominids in Australia. When you're teaching, everything is off that continent. That's the point. So we can go through and we can look at every teaching. Where is the cosmology of the United States of America? Where is North America's cosmology? Where do we get that at? Who got that work? 300, 400 years they've been here. We ain't got no stories. What about Europe? We ain't pay no attention to them. So we only stuck with the Abrahamic creation stories and rhetoric, and then African cosmologies, but we don't go nowhere else. You see how fascinating that is? Now, the truth of the matter is this: Africa is shorthanded when it comes to astronomers all over the continent. Astronomers actually being proactive in studying a lot of these ancient sites. So it is very, very important that that documentary that I talked about, When We Look Up, comes to be, because this will answer another question in African history. So my whole point is this: you need to ice up now, because your methodology is in question. I scrutinized your method. It never dealt with the topic of conversation. and you tried to slick downplay observation, but observation is the key component in the scientific method. To extract observation will lead to a faulty premise every time. Y'all see how I did that? Let me play that parody one more time for the people who may have missed it. One more time. I know y'all want to see that, so give me a second. I'm gonna play it one more time for y'all. You know what I'm saying? You know, like I said, I stand alone. I don't need no help. I'm on my own on this one. Direct all your attention to me.
What was you trying to say in the same sentence?
Are you telling me these people weren't trying to explain the natural effects of the earth?
Nigga, I'm saying that all that Big Bang talk about the affirmation was wrong.
That is not what I asked
I'm saying they got it wrong.
Are you telling me?
I'm saying yeah, they was. They got it wrong is what I'm saying.
Hypocrisy typically involves criticizing or condemning the immoral acts of others while engaging in those acts ourselves.
Science, definition of science, the use of evidence to construct testable explanations, right, and predictions of natural phenomena, as well as the knowledge generated through this process. We are natural people, and our problems are natural. So why the hell are you going on the supernatural? You become superstitious. Ooh. Oh, so they got it out back. Y'all teach that white man science, teach about evolution. I said, well, wait a minute. If you want to know about evolution, what do? Right here, it says, the book of knowing evolution. There's no Charles Darwin back then. Where's Charles Darwin at? He's not there. When you want to know about evolution, you got to go to the book of knowing evolution, which is kept it up. And everybody know, we always find there's some kept it up. Transformation. We need to start to transform our character. The dung beetle. And for the record, why I'm a real black atheist. Who is capital? The what? Capital is what? So y'all missed when I said I was a real black atheist. That means I don't give 3 flying hoots about Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and I do not walk around in fear. I follow the wisdom of my ancestors. That's why I'm a real black atheist. Atheos, anti-theos. Theos is the Greek word used in the Bible. It's the governing system. So I'm anti the governing system that enslaved my ancestors. We have no moral obligation to those who have enslaved us. y'all ain't know. I can't read that though. What's this? The papyrus, right? Berber, round plate. I can't read it though. But guess what? It's called intelligence. Where you at? Where you at? Ujalu. Ujalu. Yeah. That's how we do that. It's called teamwork. And that's how the Africans come in the world.
So how did the Egyptians know about evolution when referring to a dung beetle? Using your logic in regard to Congo teachings about their cosmology, the Egyptians would be wrong as well. So why are you using Africa when it benefits you most, i.e., vaccines, evolution, writing systems, etc.?
All right, so look, ladies and gentlemen, this Friday, I'll be on Chill Talk on Kevin Chillhur's YouTube channel with Dr. Benita Cole. Yeah, we're gonna have Dr. Benita Cole, who is in the field all over this COVID stuff. She also is writing a book. She may be complete with her book, I don't know, but she was inspired to write a book, so maybe we might get into that with her. But we're going to be answering a lot of questions and dealing with some information, especially with the book What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me. And then on the 22nd, Atlanta Black Dot Bookstore be in the building 7 p.m. Of course, we're going to be going in dealing with 8 particular questions for the community and a lot of Q&A and maybe some small, like 10-minute little conversations or presentations on certain things. So make sure that you're in the building for that. Doesn't cost any money. Come on down. If you're in South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. And look, everybody going to be in the building for that. You're going to hear from a lot of people. We're going to be in there 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? Deal with us, you know, support. Make sure you get your copy of What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me. Also pick up your copy of Spears of the Masi, volume 1, 2, 3, 4 in the dough. You know, go pick up Beautiful Lessons of Kimoyo by Kofi Paisai. Make sure you get both journals from Black Panther. You know what I'm saying? If you don't have those journals, you slipping. Killmonger's Corner. It's the first Pan-African journal in our community. So you want to make sure that you get those works. We got some beautiful information in there. Again, if you join late, you probably missed the whole presentation. It is bite-sized. I'm not going to extend it out too long. I want to make it digestible for people. Please like the show, share the show, tell a friend. If you're looking for me to be messy, that ain't going to be the case. Like I said, I'm only speaking to Ankh and Ankh only. Anybody else feel some type of way about it, you just feel some type of way about it. You know what I mean? Me and Brother Ankh, we talked earlier. No biggie. It is what it is. You know, if he wants to respond and does do something that he want to do, that's on him. He probably won't get another response out of me in regard to this whole thing. But to give context to how we got here, you have to deal with the fact that it all started with the first fire, which is the teachings in the Congo, right? That's how we got here. It wasn't anything about all these other things that someone else made it out to be. It was the teachings of the Congo and how they mapped out the universe, right? And then I went and showed how science explains the universe and how things came to be scientifically, right? That doesn't negate the teachings of the Congo, but it gives a more modern explanation of how things came to be and a more fluent based on all the technology tools and all of those things that they have at their use. So you know what I'm saying? He might have a problem with that, but astrophysicists and astronomers, they don't take to the position of you can't use science to correct some of these teachings and some of these different cultures across the world and all of that. They don't get into that. That's not an actual pattern. And even Ankh will attest and agree with, in certain methodology, there's some truth. He even said that himself. So I got a clip of that too, which I should have put in there, but I didn't. So you have to make sure that you're aware of everything that's going on. Again, the 7th, we on chill talk. The 22nd, we handling our business. We getting all the way to it on both ends. So make sure that you're in the buildings. Kevin Chilher's YouTube channel. If you don't have it, it's all over. It's all over Facebook. For those of you that are not on Facebook, I believe, like Pure, I'm gonna put his link in there again. And Chill was like, man, we gotta quit fighting each other. We gotta find us somebody else to beat up. He said, y'all bored. We could go beat up Rizza Islam. See, he gets another opportunity to speak. He's on Corey Holcomb's show. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Corey don't deal with any of us or anything like that, but he claims to kind of be so-called conscious or, you know, of the status quo, whatever that means. But man, look, I appreciate everybody tuned in. I knew a few people would actually be in the building. I knew it wouldn't be hundreds of people or anything like that. You know, I did what I did. I came, I saw, I conquered. But I needed to draw that out so people could fully understand what was actually transpiring in Unkh's presentation. It was not on the subject matter. What he presented was not. Now, whatever they talked about beyond Unkh's presentation, I did not watch. I didn't listen to. I didn't get involved in that. I specifically asked for the timestamp when Ankh started his presentation, and I specifically continued to watch Ankh throughout the day for a couple of days, several hours, making sure that I heard Ankh. No one else, Ankh. It didn't matter. Nobody else on the panel mattered. No disrespect to those whoever else had opinions or had something to say on there, Ankh, because that's all that mattered. So because he presented information. I didn't hear of anyone else presenting any information. I dare him to. I dare him. And then, you know, it is what it is. So if it's your opinion, people got their right to formulate their opinions, and I don't have no problem with it. See, where people make the mistake is if you're arguing your opinion as if it's a fact, then that's a problem. But if it's your opinion, I can respect your opinion and just leave it at that. You know what I'm saying? I can respect your opinion and leave it at that because that's all you're yielding. But if you're just combative, right, for no reason, and then you can't demonstrate, then I actually have a problem with that. So no, I mean, Uncle was the only one. Him and Sar had their conversations, and they dealt with what they had to deal with. And you know, this is my little response because I felt like Unc was playing the safe zone. He went somewhere safe where he could change the narrative and control the conversation and allow people to miss out on what the conversation was really about. It wasn't about, did the Africans understand the Big Bang? And then you turn around and you start talking science versus senses and then dealing with stone tools. Like you can't do that. Did the teachings of the Congo is the issue? That should have been the topic of the discussion. That should have been up for scrutiny. That should have been addressed, and the conversation should have been about the teachings of the Congo. Or if you were trying to go into another lane or another area, then you should have did that. You shouldn't have did all these. It was too many hours have gone by and nobody dealt with the actual teachings. Well, I don't know what happened. What y'all talking about? Reggie was the star of what show? What I missed? I don't know nothing about that. Y'all be seeing stuff that I don't see. However, since I started that conversation, right? Since I started that conversation, I felt it was only right that I actually bring people back to point A. Point A was me doing the first fire, which is mapping the universe, dealing with the Congo cosmology and their teachings. This is what they were teaching. This is what their teachings are, their ancient teachings. And then if someone takes offense, then you have to take offense with these people's teachings. This is their worldview. This is dealing with how they saw things before all the technology and the advancements in a particular field that could have helped answer, explain these things better. This is what they had. FYI, just to be honest with you, African mythology is always better than European mythology. Just go and look, go and read stories from all over the continent of Africa and how they trying to explain things and answer certain questions, and then turn around and go to Europe and read their mythology and how they try to frame things and do all of that. The storytelling levels are totally different. You'll be more entertained and pleased with what you hear over there versus what you hear over there. But also, the earliest hypothesis, as far as getting into all of that, if we talking science, Africans give some of the best hypotheses out there to test than anybody on the planet. I'm not black. That's not blackology or anything like that. I'm just basically saying, if you go look at their work and what they're doing and how they constructed monuments and all of these things, you'll be absolutely surprised at their presentation, how they present great hypotheses out there. Notice, I didn't say facts. I didn't say theories. I didn't say none of that. I said hypotheses. They formulated some of the best hypotheses across that country dealing with certain scientific discussions. Pure said Rabon was agreeing with me. Yeah. Well, you'll be surprised. We agree on quite a few things. We just don't agree with each other, I guess. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? I don't hate them or nothing. Just, it is what it is, to be honest. But yeah, man, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna end the show. I want it digestible. I want people to go back and be able to get that first hour of the video and understand what's going on there, and kind of deal with it from that perspective. And hopefully people appreciate it. What was done here. You can go back and look at what Ankh did or said, or what they gonna do tomorrow. That's up to them. Like I said, I stand on my own. This is Sean talking. This is not the Mossy talking. This is not the Kofi Pasai research team. This is Sean. This is the shots are coming from Sean. They're not coming from no other directions. And I'm not gonna expound on that. You know what I mean? Say my name. Because it's me. It's no one else. It's me. Sean said. And then go play what Sean said. But Sean never made any claims in any of the videos that I presented. And that is what has been missing in this entire argument, is Sean never claimed anything. Sean said the teachings of the Congo are, and then I went on. And then I said, well, science explained, science says this. And then there lies the problem. Why would you take offense? If science is the cleanup, man, but science is also not always right. Science is self-correcting. You have to adhere to that. When listen, the only way that you beat science is with better science. So take your L, hold that L high on your forehead. You just got beat with better science. Why? Because your methodology was flawed. And you was off topic, and you was arguing a whole different point. It was very fallacious. It was filled with fallacies. And people let you get away with that because they didn't understand, or they, you know what I mean? They don't like Sean. Like, it's a lot of people on your platform or over there, they don't like me. And I don't care, because it's 2022 And I said last year that I was gonna have more people hate me than a Saw got haters. I said I'm this 2022, I'm going to exceed a Saw in haters. If you think people hate a Saw, oh, I'm finna create a whole bucket full of people that's gonna hate me. It's going all the way down. I'm rubbing everybody the wrong way and ain't caring. Ain't caring whatsoever. I'm gonna rub them all the way. Man, they ain't even gonna want to be around. Well, I don't come around, but they ain't even gonna want to be around. I told y'all how I was gonna end the year, pissing people off. I'm beginning the year. Well, I ain't pissing Ankh off because that's my man. $5,000 and the whole 9 yards. You know what I'm saying? That's my guy. I ain't pissing him off. Ain't none of that. But I can sharpen my sword though and show him where he getting weak at. Show him he ain't adhering to them teachings. He got to get back in. He got to get back into that mode. Too comfortable over there shooting from the hip. Oh yeah. I pissed him off the other night, but that's different. You know what I mean? Because it was live and I was teasing him and all that. and he sucked, and I sucked him into that behavior the other night. I kind of led him into that, right? You know what I mean? And then I knew I had him because I seen him get frustrated, so I stayed on him a little bit. You know what I mean? But hey, that's my guy though. He said, "Sell a few Luigi hats for you crash." Yeah, man. But I don't know who else is live right now. I don't know who's saying what or anything like that. I do appreciate everybody for tuning in. Those of you who actually got the book, What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me. It is a good teaching tool. I may be looking to work on the whole breakthrough infection thing because a lot of people don't understand infection versus disease. And by the way, we got some news. Yeah, I know he on Corey show running rampant. But we got some news, some really good news, and I just say this like this. Omicron might be infecting people, but Omicron ain't putting vaccinated people in the hospital. Omicron is putting unvaccinated people in the hospital. I got some epidemiological sources that's saying right now, based on some studies that come up out of this recent wave of infections, that they mighty high in the unvaccinated. And the vaccine's done so good that they prevented a lot of deaths. They prevented a lot of deaths. So we'll go over that information probably on a panel with Chill if I don't do anything before then, man. But I really wish everybody come out. Let me put that back in the chat. This is Chill's channel. Make sure that you're subscribed to Kevin Chill Hurt's YouTube channel. That's where the interview will be. That's where we're gonna be partaking in this scholarship. Yeah, there's a variant in the UK that has been detected, and surveillance is just much more better in the UK, well, in South America and the UK than it is in the United States. We ain't even at the level of South America where we're just testing all of these, because we can't even get people to go get tested. So we can't even do proper testing to see if the virus is really mutating and adapting, and if we ourselves have a mutated virus over here. Yeah, Omicron is not Omicron. That's a fact. They're keeping us in school and it's infecting kids fast. Yes, it is infecting kids fast. Schools are back. My sons just returned to school yesterday. So I'm kind of paying attention to that to see what's going on with that. And yes, I do agree, Charles. Omicron is just more infectious. It's not more severe, but it's more infectious. However, if there are some severe cases from unvaccinated children, that's going to be an issue. But the vaccines are proven to do its job, prevent the spread of infectious disease, hospitalizations, and death. And so far, we ain't seeing these breakthrough cases from these vaccinated people. We ain't seeing them being hospitalized, or we ain't seeing them die. And that's that's on gang. That's on M gang. Yeah, I wish that they would send these kids to do online. I wish they would do that here. But yeah, man, I ain't gonna hold y'all up, man. I just wanted to appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you missed it earlier, go ahead and start the stream over and enjoy it. I'll catch y'all on the flip side. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, don't forget about Kofi podcast, man. It's a really big deal to Kofi and Sutek, and you might hear me make some appearances.
As I learned, we all learn podcasts coming 2022. So stay tuned, family.